time for On Target Radio, Chicagoland's only radio show dedicated to educating, entertaining, and discussion of firearms, legislation, and your Second Amendment rights. Presented in part by the Illinois State Rifle Association, Illinois Gun Works, Safer USA, and Chuck's Gun Shop. Here's your host, firearm instructor, educator, and enthusiastic Second Amendment proponent, David Lombardo.
Welcome to On Target Radio, Chicago's voice for the Second Amendment. I'm David Lombardo, and my co-host Tim Dalan sitting across from me. Say hello, Tim.
Howdy, everybody.
This is exciting, Tim. This is a big night for us.
Very exciting.
We are here every Sunday from 9 to 10 p.m., and we are talking about shooting sports and personal protection, hunting, and all things Second Amendment. And you, the listener, will have the opportunity to call in and talk to our guests. And speaking of our guest, Tim.
Yes.
9 weeks in a row?
9 weeks in a row.
9 weeks in a row. We would like to invite Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel to come on and discuss his views on gun control.
Yes, we would. I've been so looking forward to talking to the mayor. I just really don't understand why he would not want to come on and talk with us.
Beats me, but, you know, there it is. We lay it out every week.
Everybody listening in Chicago, call the mayor's office and ask him why he's not talking to us.
Okay, I can see that. I'll be audited. Well, no, I don't even live in Chicago. I don't have to worry. It's not a big deal. We're going to get right into the show, though. Rather than our banter, as we usually do, we're going to get into the show. You know, did you ever see the World War movie In Harm's Way?
Yes, I did.
That's a great movie.
It is. It's a very good movie.
It's about the war in the Pacific. And Burgess Meredith is in that, and his character is a public relations officer, and he's about to experience his first full-blown naval battle at sea. And he tells Admiral Rockwell Torrey, played by John Wayne, of course, that he's afraid. He's so afraid he's not sure that he'll be able to function. And Rockwell Torrey gives the classic response to that, and he says, "You'll do fine. All battles are fought by scared men who'd rather be someplace else." And I thought that's just that kind of hits that on the head. You know, my thought is it doesn't matter if you're Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, or Coast Guard. It doesn't matter if you were special operations or a cook or if you were a mechanic or a fighter pilot. When you raised your hand and you took the oath, basically you wrote a blank check made out to the United States of America, payable up to and including your life. And it didn't matter what your job was, because when the enemy comes over the fence, everyone is a warrior. It doesn't matter what you did before that. So tonight is a very special night for us. It's a Veterans Day special. We'll take your questions at 312-642-5600 or go to Facebook, like our page On Target Radio, and ask a question there. We have in the studio Tim, our very own Tim, is a veteran of the First Gulf War, a Marine. I'm a Vietnam vet. We have Bob Varsalona, who is a Korean War vet, and Carl Liture, who's a World War II vet. And so Tim joined the Marine Corps in 1975 and retired in 1996 as a gunnery sergeant. During the First Gulf War, Tim was stationed in Bahrain at Sheikh Isa, was it?
Sheikh Lots of Sand.
There you go.
Yeah.
Air Base, where he was NCOIC of the Hybrid Test Set Work Center repairing A-6 and FA-18 aircraft electronic equipment. I joined the Army in May of 66 for a 3-year enlistment and volunteered to go to Vietnam. After basic and advanced training in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and medical administration school at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, I was assigned to a medical company with the 1st Infantry Division in January of 1967. I became part of a forward medical team about a month later, and due to often heavy casualties that severely taxed our resources, I was cross-trained to assist in some of the stuff we did in the aid station, and I participated in MedCaps, the Medical Civilian Aid Program, where we go into villages and treat the general population. Bob Varsalona joined the Army in 1948, and he proudly told me to avoid going to jail. Yeah. We'll probably have to explore that at some point. Was trained at Fort Knox and went to Germany for 30 months with the Big Red One, my alma mater. He then returned home as a corporal in the Army Reserve and was eventually recalled for Korea. He landed at Incheon, was with the 35th Regiment of the 25th Infantry Division, and went to the front lines at the Yalu River. And Carl Liture joined the Navy when he was 17 years old, suffered an appendicitis attack on the same day that he joined, and was sent home. A year later, in March of 44, at age 18, he was drafted and requested that he be inducted into the Navy. Carl trained at Camp McCoy in Farragut, Idaho, and then transferred to Detroit, where he learned to be a machinist mate. Carl was assigned to the newly commissioned USS Shangri-La, was deployed to the South Pacific. The Shangri-La was anchored behind the Missouri in Tokyo Bay, where Liture watched as the Japanese delegation signed the surrender papers. That'd be the price of admission right there in my book. Aboard the Shangri-La, Liture served as a machinist mate third class in engine room number 1. The Shangri-La was hit numerous times during the war and was part of the 82-day Battle of Okinawa, in which more than 250,000 U.S., Japanese, and Okinawans lost their lives. During that battle, the United States Navy sustained the largest loss of ships in its history, with 36 lost and 368 damaged. The Navy also sustained the largest loss of life in a single battle, with almost 5,000 killed and an equal number wounded. From the deck of the Shangri-La, Carl witnessed the mortally wounded USS Franklin about 200 yards away as they plucked survivors out of the water and brought them aboard. During the rescue, Liture's thoughts were, hopefully we can get as many as we can. Gentlemen, thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you, too.
Glad to be here.
We have a fairly unstructured program, to be really honest with you, and I just want to sort of, kind of compare notes on what the different wars were like. But, Carl, there's one thing I want to start with. Are you ready for this, Carl?
I'm ready when you are.
Do porpoises really save people?
Yes, I believe they do. I've seen where the pilots didn't make the landing onto the aircraft carrier, and they were actually being pushed toward the ship by the porpoises.
So that's true. That is a true story.
True, yes.
That's interesting. I found you just made that comment, and I found that was kind of an interesting comment.
Yes, it was.
So let's we'll start with the youngest guy here. What exactly what kind of
the
work
youngest guy here?
Well, it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I guess. Let me see. I went over on a Navy ship actually at the beginning before hostilities even started, and spent a couple of weeks on the Navy ship where we hauled all our equipment over. We ended up going out to the airfield and just pretty much replaced, fixed broken parts from the aircraft. I will say that everybody here in this country probably knew much more about what was going on over there than we did. That's only because, with the media, the television, the radio that was going on, all the coverage, everybody here saw it in real time as it was going. Probably the only thing that we knew before everybody else was that when the air war was actually going to start. I remember a local time over there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they told us that the air war was going to start that morning. And I remember waking up. We were able to go to sleep. I remember waking up. What time was it? Wow, 2 a.m., something like that, local. And we had over 260 combat aircraft fully loaded with ordnance taking off in 10-second intervals down the runway. Every 10 seconds, roar as it went by. I remember at the airfield there we had 4 million tons of ordnance.
Wow.
We had the big C-5A Galaxies, the big Air Force planes. They came in one after another for weeks and weeks and just offloaded bombs and left and went and got more, just over and over. It was
and hot.
And hot. And probably about 15 minutes after that last airplane took off is when we got our first Scud alarm, and they launched the first one. So that was not as scary as probably a lot of things that Carl and Bob had to go through, but for me, that was my the first scary moment right there.
And, Tim, one of the things that has always kind of bothered me about some people, they make the comment about, well, you were a cook or you were a whatever. When you're in theater, it doesn't matter what you were. Am I right? I mean,
yeah, that's right.
You are who you are, and when the enemy hits, the enemy hits. I went to Vietnam in January '67, and I felt very fortunate because I was in the medical corps, and I mean there was a lot of nasty stuff going on, but generally we had the feeling like we were doing really positive stuff because we were in the medical corps, we're helping people. So I felt real good about that, and even though I started out doing administrative stuff, I got some cross training and I got to do some suturing and debriding and things where I actually felt that I was doing something useful. Interestingly, I could suture people up, but I was never very good at it like a doctor was. And I'm sure there's poor guys my age walking around with some pretty ugly scars, but it is what it is. And Bob, you did what now? What was I
was a squad leader, infantry.
Okay.
I was a weapons squad leader.
And you literally went into action as soon as you got there, right?
Right off of the boat. They just put us on trucks. I said, you're going to the 25th. Next thing I knew, I was sitting near the Yalu River. And then I watched the Chinese cross.
You could actually see them.
Oh, yeah, I seen them. They're like a big square walking down the road with that big red flag with the sickle and hammer. I called it in, tried to get a fire order on them. They wouldn't do it.
And that was your first encounter?
That was it.
Well, we're going to explore that a little more. That's I have a somewhat similar story, and we're going to explore that a little bit more. And we're going to certainly we're going to talk to Carl, too, about some of his experiences that I think you'll find interesting. All that and a whole lot more. And please do give us a call, either Facebook questions or give us a call. And we'll be back after these messages with more on Target Radio.
Attention firearm owners or those considering exercising your Second Amendment rights. I want to tell you about Illinois Gun Works. From void services and new firearm purchases to gunsmith services and an indoor shooting range, Don and his staff will assist you without attitude or pressure. Need training? Illinois Gun Works' popular Illinois Responsible Firearm Owners class teaches you the regulations to legally defend yourself, own, and transport your firearm. There's a required class for a Chicago firearm permit and popular new shooter familiarization class, including one for women. Now, I took this class and urge you to reserve your spot fast for this fun class. Illinois Gun Works offers a wide selection of training and certification classes, from security work to those just considering ownership, even special group classes. Illinois Gun Works, Chicagoland's full-service firearm headquarters, is located on Grand Avenue, just a block west of Harlem in Elmwood Park. Call 708-452-0040 or visit IllinoisGunWorks.com. That's 708-452-0040.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more. To participate, call the studio at 312-642-5600.
So, Bob, you arrive in Korea and they shake your hand, is that it, and then kick you up to the line?
Yeah, they sure did. Yeah.
And that was your big introduction, was seeing, what was it, company of
No, just replacements. When we got there, I went to the company headquarters. The guy says, throw your duffel bag in the corner and go up in the front line.
There's no real reason to unpack, might just as well get to work, right?
Yeah, right.
The military is so simple. It makes it very, very easy. Go up there.
That's right.
Yeah. So now you encountered, what was it, a squad of North Koreans?
A platoon.
A platoon. And how did that work out?
Well, we lost 7.
So you engaged?
Oh, yeah, we engaged heavily. I had to take the lives of 5 or 6 at the time. Rescued one of our guys that was shot. We were under fire.
And you had been there how long at that point?
A couple months.
So it is what it is. That's how we do it. I have this memory of, I wasn't even in Vietnam a week, and we're out in what was supposed to be friendly territory, and it was broad daylight, and a Viet Cong just stood up in the elephant. I mean, it was like, I was like a deer in headlights.
That's right.
You just like, I remember this, and I tell this story, Tim will tell you, I tell this story when we teach our home protection concealed carry seminar. I remember specifically seeing him stand. I didn't even know what an AK-47 was. And I remember seeing him stand up, and he was as shocked as I was. And this is the thought that went through my mind. A week ago, I was having dinner in my parents' house, and I'm going to die today. That's literally what went through my mind.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah, I mean, and so we hear people in our seminars, well, somebody does this, and I'm going to do this. That isn't how it works.
No, it isn't.
Not at all. No.
I always get these guys saying, boy, when the shooting starts, I'm going the other way. Never seen one guy do that.
No, you basically, you suck it up.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it's as much you don't want to embarrass yourself or you don't want to let down the other guys as anything. I mean, that camaraderie.
Yeah, it's the buddy system.
It is. It is indeed. And Carl, you had an interesting situation because I did some time in the Navy, and in Naval OCS we did the damage control simulator where you were actually in in the hull of a ship and you were below water and taking on water, you were down in the engine room, right?
Yes, I was.
So you were below water.
Yes, below the water line.
And your ship, the Shangri-La, took a number of hits, did it not?
Yes, it did.
That's got to sound a little scary when you're below water.
Oh, that's for sure. 'Cause then you got to get them pumps working, and that was my job, to make sure the water pumps that cool the propellers, to get them to cool down in a hurry. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to move to get out of the battle area.
And you have to reposition the ship, particularly in those days with weaponry. You had to position the ship, maneuver it to be able to line up the guns.
Yes, and that was with the propellers, and that was the captain up on the bridge. And they would talk down to us with our earphones, and that's when we had to get at all the machinery that had to be done.
And at the same time, you're hearing I've never been below water in a ship that was taking actual hits. That's got to be pretty loud.
It sure is. You can't hear anything. That's where I lost my hearing.
Oh, is that right? Is that when it happened?
Yes, that's when I lost my hearing, and I've been wearing hearing aids ever since. So.
It's people just can't imagine what that's like. It's I think the movie In Harm's Way, Rockwell Torrey. Battles are fought by scared men who wish they were somewhere else, but somehow or another, I don't know if it's the military trains you or if it's your own level of self-worth and you just refuse to give in.
Well, I think you just want to be there and get it done and get it over with, and that was my job, to take care of them engines down there, and that's what I did.
When you think back to the time in service, all three of you, when you think back to your time in service, what image do you see? What immediately comes to mind when you think back about being in the military? Tim, what comes to your mind? Any one thing?
You know what? I guess I miss the guys that I used to work with. I mean, the friendships that you had, the things you shared, good or bad. I think that you sort of tend to maybe put the bad things away in a separate place, and you remember the good times. But I still think about a lot of the people that I worked with, was in with, from different units. I was pretty well traveled, went from coast to coast, this unit, that unit in 20 years, and I remember a lot of those guys, and I wish I could still be around them a little bit and do some of the things that we used to do.
The bond that you make with people, particularly in a combat zone, regardless of what your job was, but the bond that you make in the military in general is extremely strong at the time, is it not?
Oh,
yes, it is. Definitely.
It is. You never forget the guys you lose.
And the interesting thing is, I'm not in touch with anybody that I knew in the military. I mean, you still have some friends, don't you, Tim?
Oh, yeah. I actually I have a couple people here locally in Joliet. Pretty close, Wisconsin. Another good friend of ours, Jeff, I recruited with him here. I was a recruiter in Joliet for a while. That's how I ended up. I'm not from Illinois originally, and I was on recruiting duty here in Joliet and met Jeff, and so I still see him. I mean, he lives a few miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my ammo bearer. He was wounded on the first firefight we got into, and I lost him for about a month. He was back, came back in. He went into a different squad, and I seen him. Somebody threw a grenade behind him. He come rolling down the hills again. He got discharged, and I got his address, called him. He come over and visited me quite a bit.
That's great. Do you, Carl?
Not anymore. They're all deceased, the ones that I used to keep in touch with. And,
yeah, you guys are getting up in years there.
Oh, yes.
You're looking pretty good, to be honest with you.
Well, I'll be 87 on my next birthday.
Good for you. My dad would be 104. He was a doctor in the Pacific in those days. So, Bob, when you think of those days, what image do you conjure up? What's the first thing that sort of bubbles up?
Getting into that first firefight was something else.
That's the one that comes back.
I just never forget it. It's like yesterday.
Yeah, and that's the same way I am about that one encounter. I was very fortunate. I was in the medical corps, and I wasn't an infantryman or anything like that. But 4 times in Vietnam I got involved, and I can tell you that it's not the place you want to be.
No picnic, no.
What do you conjure up when you think about those days?
Well, I look at the good side at the last day, especially when we saw actually seeing the peace papers being signed, and of course loading the planes with the pamphlets that they were going to drop on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was a big thing a remembering thing for me.
The Battle of Okinawa had to be horrific.
We were there for quite a while, yes.
And it's just, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it was the greatest number of casualties the Navy, both in tonnage and in human resources in the history of the Navy. And you were in the middle of that.
All that time was spent below decks and just keeping everything running smooth, and that's what we did.
Long, hot days.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm basically like you, Bob. The one thing that sticks back is that first time. It just, and it's like a video that plays in your head. I don't obsess about it, but occasionally, all of a sudden, particularly if I'm talking to a bunch of guys like this, and all of a sudden that video plays in the back of my head. It just comes back every time.
It just pops up like watching television.
It does. And people will occasionally. It doesn't happen that often, but people go, "You okay?" I mean, because you're sort of. You know what I'm saying?
You get into a trance and
you're
wondering what's going on.
Yeah, the 1,000-yard stare. I get stung
exactly.
with that a lot.
Yep, 1,000-yard stare. That's it. I don't know. We only have about a minute and a half here, so until we break. But it doesn't irritate me, but it kind of nettles me a little when people keep going, "Thank you for your service." I don't need to be thanked for my service. If you want to thank me, just respect who I am. Just be nice to me. But it's gotten to be like a catchphrase, and I find it a little irritating. Does it bother anybody else?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes
Yeah.
I just look the other way or something.
Yeah. I mean, people are coming and go, "Oh, thank you for your service." I don't need to be thanked,
We did what we had to do.
Exactly.
That's part of a job.
Yeah, you don't think you did anything out of the ordinary. You just...
Exactly.
You were there, you had to do it, and you did it.
You did what you did.
You do some of the craziest things you ever thought of.
And we are going to talk more about that when we come back here in just a few minutes. We'll talk about some of the more crazy things that we do. Actually, when we come back, it'll be Tim's Tip of the Week.
Yes, it will.
Chuck's Gun Shop proudly serves Riverdale and the surrounding communities. Conveniently located near the 142nd Street exit of the Bishop Ford Expressway, Chuck's Gun Shop is staffed by friendly, skilled professionals who will help guide a first-time shooter and assist you in obtaining a State of Illinois firearm owner's identification card. Chuck offers a full line of new handguns, rifles, shotguns, knives, and accessories. Chuck's also buys, sells, and trades used firearms and has a gunsmith on location that will provide expert care for your favorite firearm. Chuck's features a 6-lane indoor shooting range. Bring your own firearm or rent one from their wide assortment. If you live in Chicago, Chuck's Gun Shop offers the required Chicago firearms permit course. Chuck's Gun Shop is open Monday through Saturday and located at 14310 Indiana Avenue in Riverdale. Visit their website, chucksgunshop.net, or call 708-849-4455. That's 708-849-4455. Chuck's Gun Shop, serving Riverdale and surrounding communities.
I'm David Lombardo, president of Safer USA, Chicagoland's most popular firearm training school. We continue to offer our popular home protection and concealed carry seminar every month. This 8-hour seminar covers everything you need to know to safely and legally use a firearm for both concealed carry and home invasion, and qualifies you for Florida and Utah concealed carry permits good in about 30 states. Be sure to call and ask how we can help you raise funds for your organization or provide a guest speaker. We're also offering the NRA Basic Pistol Course and our Tactical Pistol 1 and 2. As always, I offer private one-on-one instruction for Basic Pistol, Chicago Firearm Certification, and Basic Home Defense. For further information, please call 877-954-3030 or go to saferusa.com. Safer USA, choosing to own a firearm is your business. Teaching to own it responsibly is ours.
That's 877-954-3030 or saferusa.com.
We now return to On Target on AM 560 WIND. If you have a question or opinion, the studio line is 312-642-5600. Now, here's your host, firearm expert and educator, David Lombardo.
We're back with more On Target Radio, and this is the moment everyone has been waiting for. It's Tim's Tip of the Week, which you said you're going to drag out the 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Well, you already took an added 3 onto it right there. First off, I would like to say congratulations to one of our newest veterans, a very good friend of mine who I was in the Marine Corps with, Daryl Blesson. His son, Nate Patzner, just graduated from Marine Corps boot camp just 2 days ago on Friday.
Congratulations.
So congratulations to Nate and Daryl and their whole family. This is your tip of the week, brought to you by the Illinois State Rifle Association. I thought it'd be a good idea tonight to explain how Veterans Day came to be and what it means. Veterans Day coincides with other holidays such as Armistice Day or Remembrance Day, which are celebrated in other parts of the world. It marks the anniversary of the signing of the armistice that ended World War I, which formally ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918 with the German signing of the armistice. Veterans Day is not to be confused with Memorial Day. Veterans Day celebrates the service of all U.S. military veterans, while Memorial Day is a day of remembering the men and women who died while serving. President Woodrow Wilson first proclaimed Armistice Day for November 11th in 1919. In proclaiming the holiday, he said, "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed us and because of the opportunity it has given to America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the councils of the nations." The United States Congress passed a concurrent resolution 7 years later on June 4, 1926, requesting that President Calvin Coolidge issue another proclamation to observe November 11th with appropriate ceremonies. A congressional act approved May 13, 1938, made the 11th of November in each year a legal holiday, in part saying, "A day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and to be thereafter celebrated and known as Armistice Day." In 1945, World War II veteran Raymond Weeks from Birmingham, Alabama, had the idea to expand Armistice Day to celebrate all veterans, not just those who died in World War I. Weeks led a delegation to General Dwight Eisenhower, who supported the idea of National Veterans Day. Weeks then led the first national celebration in 1947 in Alabama and annually until his passing in 1985. U.S. Representative Ed Reese from Emporia, Kansas, presented a bill establishing the holiday through Congress, and President Dwight Eisenhower, also from Kansas, signed the bill into law on May 26, 1954. Congress then amended this act on June 1, 1954, replacing armistice with veterans, and it has been known as Veterans Day ever since. This has been your Tip of the Week, brought to you by the Illinois State Rifle Association.
For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has supported the rights and freedoms of Illinois citizens to keep and bear arms. For over 100 years, the ISRA has supported the use of firearms as a sport, for personal protection, and as a fundamental aspect of national defense. For over 100 years, the Illinois State Rifle Association has been supporting you. Don't you think it's time you supported them? The ISRA, isra.org, or 815-635-3198. That's 815-635-3198. The Illinois State Rifle Association, supporting you. ISRA, good friends of ours, and sponsor, too. Thank you, Tim.
You are welcome.
I always appreciate that the pithy moment that you share with us.
Pithy, there's that word again.
It is indeed. It is that word again. A quick question, because this is a gun show. Somebody pointed that out. This is a gun show. I'm just curious, real quickly, you, Bob, what did you carry in Korea? Which was it, the M1?
I carried them all. I carried the M1. I carried the carbine, 45, 3.5 bazooka, light machine gun, BAR.
So how did our weaponry stack up against the North Koreans?
Well, to tell you the truth, they had as much as our weapons as we did.
Really?
Yes.
Getting it from our fallen guys?
Well, we supplied the Chinese in World War II, and they brought it back to us.
Okay, and that's been a recurring theme, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, in the Navy, Carl, if you were on board ship, were you checked out with a handgun?
No. All I had was a knife that I carried for self-defense, or if I fell in the water,
A knife?
I still have it.
Did you? You must have qualified with something.
Well, I qualified on the range in boot camp. That's the only time I ever fired a weapon.
That would have been an M1 then.
Yes.
And that was it.
That was it.
So on board ship, that's interesting. I probably never gave that a lot of thought. You weren't issued. I mean, theoretically, you wouldn't need one.
We didn't need any down in the engine room.
And what did you have, Tim? 16?
Oh, no. I had a Beretta 92F, 2 magazines of ammo, and I'm just a real short story. I might have heard this somewhere before and don't remember. One of my guys one time, because they had M16s with, bandoliers of ammo, somebody harassed me one time and said, "What are you going to do with that? You got 2 magazines of ammo." I said, just off the top of my head, I said, well, I only need 1 shot. And they said, "Why?" "Because if you can't stop them, I'm going to use 1 shot to take yours away from you."
It's good to have friends, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really good
friends.
to have friends. Yes, certainly. I had the M14 and then the M16, and I liked them both. In fact, I got 3 of the ARs now. So we're going to take another break here coming up, and then we will be back shortly after these messages with more On Target Radio.
For 35 years, Pelcher's Shooter's Supply has served the Lansing area. Pelcher's offers new and used firearms sales, appraisals, and gunsmithing service. Pelcher's new spacious showroom has hundreds of major brand firearms and supplies, and PelcherGuns.com features daily specials. Pelcher's Shooter's Supply, on the corner of Ridge Road and Henry Street in downtown Lansing. Online at PelcherGuns.com or call 708-474-0662.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more. To participate, call the studio at 312-642-5600.
Over the break, I was just talking with Bob here, and he mentioned something that I found kind of interesting, because I always thought of Korea as, a war with a line, the parallel. Which parallel was that? The
38th.
38th, yeah. Vietnam, my biggest concern in Vietnam was you never knew when. There were no lines, so you just didn't know. We would get rocketed, originally mortared every night, and then they found rockets, and that was really scary. But every single night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, we'd get hit, and we'd scramble around, and then it would go away. But you never knew. You could be going anywhere, and all of a sudden you get hit. You just didn't know. Well, apparently that was true in Korea.
Oh yeah, you'd hear a bugle in the middle of the night, a red or red-green flare go up, and here they come.
See, I always thought of it as a war with a line.
Yeah, no lines, because everything was mountain range.
So you never knew when you're going to get hit.
I climbed mountains every day for 14 months.
Well, it puts you in good shape.
Yeah, look at me now. I got swollen up.
Is there any comfort, Carl, to being in the bowels of a ship? At least you're sort of, the enemy can't walk up and touch you.
No, I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff, and I give a lot of credit to all the boys that were on the battlefields and on the grounds wherever they had to fight.
No, go ahead.
And our pilots too, and our gunners up on the upper decks.
Did you get any warning that you were about to take fire? Did they call down in the engine room and go, guys?
Yeah, they would notify us down there.
So you basically knew something was going to happen.
Something was going to happen. They'd have general quarters immediately, or call down, because we had to be in touch so we wouldn't make any smoke up on the upper decks.
Oh, sure, they give away your position.
Yes, right.
Sure. And what about in where you were, Tim?
No, because, we'd hear the scuttle arms. We never caught any small arms fire. It was all scuttle arms.
Was that a big base?
It was a big base. All of the Marine Corps aircraft, 260-some aircraft, were at that base. A very few Air Force, the Wild Weasel, F-4 Phantoms, they called them, they were there. But scuttle arms definitely every day, 3 or 4 times a day. We were sort of lucky, though, because we were way down at the other end from where they were shooting. So during the beginning of the war, the first Patriot missile battery closest would shoot at them as they went by. But towards the end of the war, we actually started running out of Patriots. We were getting close to the end. I don't know how many, but we actually started shooting our Patriots off at our air base right at the end of the war. We actually had a Scud missile fall right outside our base. I was sitting 2-3 o'clock in the morning working night shift. they had a little tent where we could make sandwiches or whatever, and I remember I was sitting across a table from another guy as he stuffed a sandwich in his face. Before the scud alarm went off, we heard the whoosh of the Patriot taking off, and you felt the air pressure rack around you, and all of a sudden we ran out of the tent and heard a big boom, and it was like fireworks falling from the sky, and both the Scud and the Patriot fell right outside the gate to the base.
You're listening to AM 560 WIND Radio, and this is On Target Radio. I think the thing that was freaky in Vietnam was we did get hit every night, pretty much, but we were, pretty strong concentration of troops. It was hard to just overrun us. But what was freaky was we would go do medical civilian aid programs where we go into villages, and you never knew what was going to happen. I mean, they might have been Viet Cong. You just never knew what was going to happen. That was always very challenging, and frankly, always gave you pause to be somewhat concerned about how that was going to end up. But and I'm sure you had the same problem. Huh?
Oh, sure, all the time. You just never knew. You could go in a village and they'd be happy to see you. That same people would come out and shoot at you the next night.
And, the comment that you made over the break was interesting because it's very true. You'd made the comment that you look back in retrospect and it's hard to believe that you did the things that you did. And I look the same way. We in the aid station, we had a guy, it still sticks in my mind, who lost his arms and legs. You just never forget that, working on that guy. You had the same sorts of things.
Oh, sure. We hit a roadblock one night, and we had guys sitting all over the tank. And this kid, 2 weeks in our outfit, got shot. He got killed right out the front of the tank.
It's funny you say that because the very first operation I went on, I think it was Junction City, I was in country 3 weeks, and we'd set up an aid station out in the field supporting the division, and there was a lieutenant sitting on the tail of an armored personnel carrier, and his sergeant was cleaning the machine gun up on top, and it was he discharged a round right through the lieutenant, killed him right in front of me. He was like 15 feet from me, and it was like nothing you could do. It just went right through his shoulder, through his chest, came out. I mean, it was just, I'd been there like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. We had half track going with a guy sitting on the back. He hit a road mine, blew him right off of the back of that thing.
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
Very scary stuff. Ross from Homewood. Ross, you got about 30 seconds.
Hi. I'd like to ask Bob what he thought about the President Truman versus General MacArthur controversy in Korea, and if we should have taken the war to China and fought the war more aggressively.
Thanks, Ross. Go ahead. You got about 30 seconds.
I was just a corporal there, but I didn't have any opinion. They were there to fight and protect, and that's what we did.
It's here's the thing that I find freaky to this day. When I watch the news and I see some colonel talking to me, he looks like a kid. But when I was in, he looked like an old man.
Yeah.
The war is fought by young people.
Well, you have to think about even some of the senior officers there are 40.
Right. It's very strange. Giving 20-year-olds automatic weapons. What a hoot. We're going to be back to wrap it up here in just a few minutes with more On Target Radio.
Chuck's Gun Shop proudly serves Riverdale and the surrounding communities. Conveniently located near the 142nd Street exit of the Bishop Ford Expressway, Chuck's Gun Shop is staffed by friendly, skilled professionals who will help guide a first-time shooter and assist you in obtaining a State of Illinois firearm owner's identification card. Chuck offers a full line of new handguns, rifles, shotguns, knives, and accessories. Chuck's also buys, sells, and trades used firearms and has a gunsmith on location that will provide expert care for your favorite firearm. Chuck's features a 6-lane indoor shooting range. Bring your own firearm or rent one from their wide assortment. If you live in Chicago, Chuck's Gun Shop offers the required Chicago Firearms Permit course. Chuck's Gun Shop is open Monday through Saturday and located at 14310 Indiana Avenue in Riverdale. Visit their website, chucksgunshop.net, or call 708-849-4455. That's 708-849-4455. Chuck's Gun Shop, serving Riverdale and surrounding communities.
You're listening to On Target on AM 560 WIND with David Lombardo. Here's David with more interesting conversation on firearms, safety, your Second Amendment rights, and much more. To participate, call the studio at 312-642-5600.
And we have Andy on the phone. Andy, just a real quick one. Go right ahead. You've got literally just a couple seconds. Okay, we don't have Andy on. That's fine.
Andy wanted to say thank you for all the veterans that were on the show.
Well, thank you, Andy. I'm not quite sure why we're not picking up here, but for some reason we're not. The military, this is really kind of hard for me to even talk about. But when I went into the Army, I joined the Army because I'd watched way too many John Wayne war movies. Way too many John Wayne war movies. And I was instilled with this great, I'm going to go and, kill the Hun. And I have never regretted it. Not for a minute have I ever regretted it. But it is not what most people think it's going to be. And it changed my life enormously because I was really flaky before I went in the military. I wasn't told I had a choice between going to jail or going to the military, but I was pretty flaky, and it really, I flunked out of high school the first time. I flunked out of college after a semester. They don't let you flunk out of the Army. And so when I came out, I ended up going to University of Illinois for 10 years. So I was hooked. Bob, did it affect your life?
Hello?
Well, we've got, okay. Did we get him? I didn't hear him at all.
Andy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, Andy, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you to the vets for their service, and I'm a Marine vet myself. I served underneath Tim in the Marine Corps, and he was probably the best staff NCO that anybody could ever ask for.
Well,
wow.
Thanks, Andy.
That's amazing. No, he's a good guy. Thank you, Andy.
Great people. All right, thanks.
Thanks. Carl.
Yes.
Did it have an effect on your life?
Well, it did. I grew up. I quit high school to go into the military. I never went back to get my college degree because we got married after I got out. And we led a good life, and everyone treated me great. I'm not sorry for the couple of years that I was in there. It was one of those things that we had to do, and came back, and here we are still doing what we can for the vets right now.
Exactly. Tim?
I made so many friends that I'm sure that every single one of them affected my life in the direction that I went. So I very much appreciate being in.
Yeah, I think it's a shared experience. People you've never met before, you have a common bond. You just do. You have a common bond, and it's something that most people don't understand and probably never will. Well, it goes by quickly, Tim, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I'd like to thank our guests, Carl Liture and Bob Varsalona. Thank you very much for coming in this evening.
And it was our pleasure.
Thank you.
And thanks, gentlemen, for coming in.
Thanks to Vicki Cohen, our call screener, George Hoffman on the board. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Illinois Gun Works, Chuck's Gun Shop, Pelcher Shooter Supply, Illinois State Rifle Association, our website developer 31 Moons, and Safer USA. Next week, we are going to be talking about hunter education.
Oh, very good. Very timely there.
It is. This is, and it was hard to get people to come on because they're all out hunting. But we're going to have Mike Polk and Lyle Sleazer on, both hunter ed instructors. They're out of the Aurora Sportsman's Club, and so we'll be talking about hunter ed. And we hope people will call in and ask lots of questions because it is an international program. Each state runs it, but it is an international program.
I know
so that's what we're going to do.
I know it's very hard to get into, so I'm sure people will have questions with how to get in to take a class.
Exactly. So we're looking forward to that next week. Until then, please, friend us on Facebook. We'd like to see the numbers go up. And thank you very much for listening to On Target Radio. And we'll see you next week. And thanks, Mike, for making it all possible.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. See you next week.